Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. We have one of my favorite people in the whole world here today, Bunk Mann from Ocean City. Welcome, Bunk.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So you're a guy, you're like me. I identify with you a lot because you're a Salisbury guy and an Ocean City guy, which is how I always grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in Salisbury, worked in Ocean City every summer through high school and college. And the day after I graduated from college, my parents moved to Ocean City permanently. So I spent 8 years paying rent every summer and no home cooked meals. And the day after I graduated and have to go get a real job,
Right.
they moved to Ocean City and lived there throughout the rest of their lives.
Well, everyone knew your dad. He was the doctor down there.
He's one of them. Yeah, he's one of them. He was in with
Dr.
Dr. Townsend
Yeah.
on 10th Street.
Yeah, on 10th Street,
Yeah.
the medical center there.
And he's a piece of work too, man.
Yeah, he was.
He's a party guy. He was.
He was a lot of fun.
I have a hard time filling his shoes, believe me.
He was a big hunter, wasn't he?
He more of a fisherman.
Yeah.
In his earlier days, he liked to hunt, but
Yeah.
he was he loved to fish. Took every Wednesday off and went out in his boat at the jack spot and no, I'm sorry, not jack, bass grounds.
Right.
And in the bay for flounder and loved it.
Yeah, and he was a great guy. And you were very involved in the fire department here.
Well, I was. Okay, I'm too old for that now.
Right.
But I was involved with the Salisbury Fire Company as a volunteer firefighter, and then with the Fruitland Fire Company until I moved over to Ocean Pines about 22 years ago. So,
Right. It's been that long.
yeah, it's hard to believe.
Wow.
It's hard to believe that it goes by so quick.
And everyone had their insurance policy with you for a long time.
Well, not everybody, but enough that I could.
Between you and Robin Gray, it seemed like it.
Well, Robin's with us now. Robin
Right.
actually works for us. His nephew Charlie is the Gray and Mann and Gray Insurance. So Charlie's actually the managing partner now. I'm basically retired from the insurance business.
Now, you hit on a thing a few years ago, writing about the history of Ocean City.
Mm-hmm.
And your Vanishing Ocean City book was amazing. I look at it all the time. Have a little column in the paper down there in the Dispatch where you talk about things that have disappeared in Ocean City.
Every
bring back
Friday
these
for
memories.
7.5 years.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I look forward to it all the time.
Good.
And I know at my little paper, the history column that I do and the history items that I run
Mm-hmm.
are among the most popular things that I do that I get great feedback on. So
That's
people
actually
really,
the first thing I read when I pick up your paper.
Thank you.
You
So
know?
people really want to know this stuff. They want to know about our history.
What's scary though, Greg, is that I pick up the paper now. Most of what you have there, I lived through it. You know?
Right.
I mean,
In
the
history
60s
column.
and 70s,
Yeah.
I mean, it's if you have something from the 20s, I can't say that I was there
Right.
for that one. But
When I do it, I look for names of people who are still around and try to
Yeah.
include them.
well, I love the stuff you have in there. I actually I have a scrapbook on all the fire history. Actually, right now it's probably 20-some scrapbooks, and I cut out the stuff about the fire departments or the fires and put it in there. So
See, that could be a book right there.
Yeah.
The fire history of the shore.
I think I'm pretty busy just with the Ocean City stuff.
Well, I mean, I get goosebumps. Where my office is, I walk by the courthouse every day, and they've got that plaque there where they commemorate the fire in Salisbury.
Great
And-
Salisbury Fire,
Yes.
1886.
And that fire trucks got put on rail cars in Delaware and all over and taken to Salisbury that day to help fight the fire, that the fire was fought by everyone on the peninsula.
They actually, Wilmington sent 2 companies down from Wilmington on a train,
Yeah.
and Chrisfield sent their horse-drawn steamers,
Yeah.
not fire engines in those
Right.
days as we think of,
Right.
but horse-drawn. And they saved the courthouse.
Isn't that amazing?
They saved the courthouse. That was the whole downtown burned,
Yeah.
and but they were able to get there in time
Yeah.
and save that. Which at that time the courthouse was only 8 years old.
Right.
You know, it was the modern wonder of Salisbury. So-
Right. And it was on the hill overlooking the lake then.
Yeah, the
at that
lake.
point.
Yeah, everything on Main Street
Was
hadn't east
underwater.
was underwater. Yeah.
Right.
Big lake there.
Right, but they saved it, and it's commemorated in that plaque, and it just reminds you of how important Salisbury was to the whole area, that people were willing to step up in a time of need and help address that problem.
Well, you know, you mentioned that plaque. We held a ceremony on the 100th anniversary of the Great Salisbury Fire, and they rang the bells at the time that the fire began.
Wow.
And it was, you got chills doing
Yeah,
this.
I get chills just thinking about
And
it.
we had a Hall of Fame. We inducted several people into the Hall of Fame, Fireman's Hall of Fame. And so I was there that night, and I remember it well.
Well, one of the things of the first book, The Vanishing Ocean City, and that's the theme, is that Ocean City changes so much all the time. All this stuff that were so important in my life, and I remember as a kid, like Purdue's Pharmacy downtown. The little there's a little shop in there where they had the ice cream and the sunglasses and stuff.
Man, it had one arm, could do the...
Mr. Purdue had one
make
arm,
the ice cream.
and there's a famous story with that. I guess he had his arm. He fell off in front of a train and had his arm cut off. But I had been a kid going in there for years, and one day he came from behind the counter, and I was like 7 or 8, and I said, "Mr. Purdue, you only have one arm." And my mother was horrified that I had said this. And he's like, "Well, yeah, I've always only had one arm." And I had never noticed it before because he was that efficient in everything, scooping ice cream and, making orangeades. You never noticed that Mr. Purdue had one arm. But like that building, they tore it down this year.
So, yeah, tore it down.
And that's a part of my life that's gone.
Well, there's
it's
a picture
vanished.
of that in this book, all right? Beautiful building. Beautiful
building.
It was,
my first grade teacher, Mrs. Timmons, lived upstairs there.
well, they were going to restore it, but they found out that when the engineers went in there, it was
too far
structurally
gone. Yeah.
unsound. It would have been dangerous to try to restore it. But I was there when they were tearing it down, and it was a lot of people were real sad to see that one go.
But there's little stories like that everywhere, and you have documented all this for us so that we know where things were and how it was.
I did 170 interviews for this book, and they're
Right. Let's show the new one. This is goes to
that's the new
goes
one.
to the
Goes
surf.
to the Surf,
This is
yeah.
your second book,
second book,
and you're selling it on your website right now.
yeah, on the website. The website is actually VanishingOceanCity.com. It took the name of my first book, and it's available at numerous places in Ocean City, a few places around here as well. Very proud of it, really. I had such a good time doing this. Everybody said, "Well, you put a lot of work into it." I'm thinking, that wasn't work. It was just getting to know new people and hear their stories. And everybody has a story, particularly about Ocean City.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a story, and everybody added to the book. I mean, it's, somebody said, "Was anybody you just wish you hadn't spent your time interviewing?" I'm going, no. I mean, I learned from them. And, and I made some good friends along the way from the last two books, people that I never would have, been able to meet or get to know. And the late Fish Powell, one of them.
Yeah.
And I interviewed his wife for this book. And just wonderful people and wonderful stories of Ocean City and positive things about Ocean City. So.
Yeah, even in all the stuff that's disappeared, no one's mad about it. They just get sentimental about it. They understand progress.
Well, a lot of Ocean City disappeared due to fires and storms. And then lately, a lot of it's disappearing due to what you call progress.
Right.
A lot of these old buildings they're not equipped for today.
Right.
There's only four of the old boardwalk hotels that are left that were there at the end of World War II.
I guess the Langford is one. I'm trying to think what the others might be.
The Atlantic.
Right, the Atlantic's there. This was the
Langford,
first one. Yeah.
The Majestic, and trying to think what the third. Harrison Hall was after.
Right.
After that was built in, I think, 1953.
We know my family built the Majestic.
Oh, is that right?
The Bassett family built it. They
Okay.
were in Ironshire, and my grandfather used to talk about they'd cut wood all winter, and then they would go to Ocean City and all summer build the hotel.
Right.
And the only thing they had ever built was a barn. So
Wow.
the old Majestic looks like a barn. And then when the Savages bought it, they added to the north end and put an elevator in.
Wasn't it called something else when they
It was
built it?
called Liberty Farms.
Liberty Farms.
It was
Okay.
Bassett's Liberty Farms
And
Hotel.
that's why it got the name.
Yeah.
See, I've learned something
Yeah.
today.
So that
Could have put that in the book.
was my family. And before, years ago, when there was still a restaurant downstairs there, you could go in down there in that coffee shop, and the tables were made out of holly wood that was from the old Bassett farm, where my grandfather and his brother made the tables out of holly trees. I mean, it's just incredible when you think about it.
Well, your dad, wasn't he a barber and then
My
in real
father was
estate?
a barber at 15th Street, had
And
Ronnie's
then-
Barbershop.
And he was in real estate
Then
as
he
well?
went into real estate. He started
Yeah.
selling real estate part-time, made more
Right.
money selling real estate on the weekends than he did cutting hair. So
Who did he work
switched.
for in real estate?
He had his own, but he worked for Press who had Press's Barbershop down at the
Oh,
Inlet
okay, yeah.
a million years ago, and then he went to work for Charlie the Barber,
Okay.
right next to Ernie's Donuts at where the Shaw Theater
Well, you
was.
mentioned Press. There's a picture in here.
Okay, is there
A Press.
Press?
And the
Press
little.
Fleming, not Press Fleming. What was, I forget his last name.
Let me see. It's in
Yeah.
here. Davis.
Press Davis.
Press
That's what it was.
Davis.
Press Davis.
And you know what they said about him was that if you didn't know how to cuss before you walked in there, that by the time you had your haircut and walked out, you knew how to cuss in several languages.
Yeah,
That
yeah. Press was down by the Inlet, down where the Stagers had their building, their apartment building.
I think he was down on
there.
Somerset Street.
Yeah, right where the parking lot is now,
Yeah.
or where the bus station
Well, the
is.
young man whose hair he's cutting is now the chief of the volunteer section of the Ocean City Fire Department.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he's now the Mo Cropper is his name.
Okay.
And he's a fine young man, the Cropper family.
Right.
Of course, Cropper in Ocean City, the name is synonymous
Right.
almost.
And then Press's son, Deanie Davis, who also worked for Trimper's Rides. You've got Granville right next to
yeah,
him.
that's Granville and
Uh,
Harry Kelly, the immortal
right.
Harry Kelly,
Right.
getting out of his bulldozer.
Deanie cut hair and also ran the merry-go-round at Trimper's Rides, which is I always thought was an interesting career to do those two jobs.
That's Trimpers is. I think they have the record right now, the second oldest
Yeah.
family-run amusement park in the United States, or maybe the oldest, maybe the second oldest in the world.
Yeah.
And that. I mean, anybody's ever been to Ocean City, they've been to Trimpers. I mean, that's a must do. And today, my grandchildren are riding on rides that my dad rode on when he was
Isn't that
a kid.
incredible?
I mean, they have rides there for the kiddie section that go back to the 1920s. And so it's kind of neat. I take my grandkids there and say, your great granddaddy rode the same ride you did. They go like, who cares, but to me, it's kind of neat,
I think the hardest I cried as a parent was when I first put my son in the Snap the Whip at Trimper's Rides, because I remembered it was my favorite ride of all time.
Oh, the one
was
that comes-
Snap
yeah.
the Whip, yeah. And just to see him in there when I'd finally outgrown the Snap the Whip, that was a sad day when they wouldn't let me anymore. One of your photos I saw somewhere online, and I just shared it with my kids because I used to tell them that when we were kids, we hardly went to the beach. We played under the boardwalk all day.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
what we did. We hung out under the boardwalk. And they could not comprehend that we could possibly get under the boardwalk. And there was a photo from down where the beach parking lot was, and you could see under the boardwalk, and there were people under the boardwalk. And we hung out there under the boardwalk all the time.
So you can't today. They put
Yeah.
the seawall in.
Yeah.
And it's, you can't get under there, which is probably good.
Yeah, it's good.
Actually,
Some
several
bad things happened down
several
there.
guys my age that in the 60s that went down there and they'd tell their parents, say, well, where are you staying down there? You sleeping in your car? I said, no, we're staying at the Hotel Underwood. And the Hotel Underwood was under the boardwalk. They'd get a sleeping bag and crawl under there. Down around 4th Street was a real good spot. You could go in under 4th Street and just go for about a half a block under there. It was, all kind of people sleeping down there at night. So I never did that. But, but several prominent people that prominent today in Ocean City tell me they did. So it didn't hurt anybody.
So much change, so many great characters. Who are the characters that you have found out about that you've enjoyed exploring?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a whole section in here on the characters of Ocean City. And it's not complete because you could have a whole book this size just on the characters of Ocean City.
The characters of the resort, they're the ones that I think about all the time. They've really made a mark on me.
Well, one of the most popular, and he just passed away a year ago, was a gentleman named Boardwalk Elvis,
Yeah.
or known as that. And he would dress up like Elvis Presley,
Norman Webb.
and walk up and down the boardwalk. He did this he started back in the 60s. In those days, he wasn't Boardwalk Elvis. He was just, they called him Crazy Norman. He had a boom bat. He was just a real short little guy, and he had a boom box that almost as big as he was, carrying that up there and playing the songs. And but he became a legend in Ocean City, and
people would look for him.
Oh yeah.
When I went away to college, people were talking about him in College Park.
Well, I interviewed him for this book, and it was a unique interview. I mean, really was. He spent most of the time telling me how many friends he had on Facebook. But we were over at the bagel shop in Ocean Pines when I interviewed him, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the interview, he jumps up, and some lady that he thought he knew walks in. He runs over to him, and he grabs her by the arm, and he says, "Bunk Mann's writing a book about me." And he points to me, and she's looking at it like, Are you crazy?
He used to ride his bike everywhere.
Dressed as Santa Claus in the wintertime, yeah.
Right.
There's a shot
Right.
of that in there, of
Okay.
him dressed as Santa Claus. And that was one of the most unique interviews. There's a guy named Bo Ruggiero who
Bo,
you
downtown
probably remember.
Bo, yeah.
And I
Wore
never met Bo Ruggiero.
sunglasses at all hours of the day.
Yeah, and he had all the bling, the
Yeah.
chains and all that.
Yeah.
But there's a whole page about him in there. And what's interesting, he looked like, he looked bad. He looked like
looked
the
like a
kind of guy you
gangster.
didn't want to mess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he had a heart of gold. And all the people that remember him talk about all the good things he did.
He would help so many people, give them money, give
And
them a place to
particularly the
stay.
foreign students. He
Yeah.
would help them. Some of the people that were homeless, he'd give them a place to stay.
Yeah.
He would send them to the dentist or the doctor and pay for it. And I'm sorry I never got to meet him personally. He died several years ago.
He was
And,
scary, but then after he died, you learned all these stories came out about people who had all been touched by him.
There's several things about him in here that are good. One of the best stories, Harry Kelly, the famous mayor, was in Florida when he died. And they brought him back here, and they had a state funeral for him where he lay in state in the city hall.
It was a big deal.
And
They're in the rotunda.
So Bo's going through the line, and there's a lady in front of him, and she says, "Oh my Lord, he really looks good," And Bo says, "Well, hell, lady, he ought to look good. He's been in Florida for 2 weeks." Everybody goes, "Only Bo," So there's there's all the kind of stuff like that in there, Well, you know what it is because you were in the first book. You were interviewed for the first book, and it's just things that. It's Ocean City. It's just things about Ocean City. Not all of it is anything famous, but it's all just from the heart. People, their memories, what they like about Ocean City, what they miss that's no longer there. Some of the people that made an influence in their lives. And I've been fortunate. I've gotten to meet a lot of those people as a result of these books.
Yeah, it's changed so much, but still there's a little small town in the middle of all that mess.
Yeah. And in the wintertime, the locals really enjoy just getting together. And they do a lot of things to help each other. It's a town that they give. They're a very giving town. A lot of people behind the scenes give. And I'm just proud to be part of it. I'm proud to know these people and be able to call them my friends.
Now, it's hard to write a book, and I guess you went through that the second time, so was it easier to write this one?
This was much easier. For one thing, everybody knew what I was doing this time because of the first book.
And they knew what it was going to look like, so you didn't have to explain all that.
Well, I didn't have to explain what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I actually had people call me and say, "Hey, here you're doing another book. I'd like to be in it. Or you ought to interview my dad or, my grandpa, something, And I think I only had one or two people say they didn't want to be interviewed. And the first time I had several that, "No, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't want to do it." So it's all in there. It's a who's who of Ocean City between the two books. It's a little bit of everything. Well, and a few tourists thrown in as well to give the perspective for people that go there for a week every year. And
George and Sue Hurley were my godparents, and they wrote that
wonderful people.
That first great history book of Ocean City. And my Aunt Sue, she liked to complain about stuff, but she would complain. She would go over to someone's house just to pick up a picture that they had that she wanted to put in the book, and she'd have to sit there and talk to them all day. And then she was like, "Wait a minute, I'm getting some good information here. I should write this down and put it in the book instead of just coming by it." Because they wanted to do a picture book, but they ended up writing some other stuff with it, and it was really nice.
Their book is really what inspired me. It's called A Pictorial History of Ocean City, and they, I think it went to about 3 different publications or whatever. Really good book. I always considered
it's scrapbook photos from people's scrapbooks is what it is.
It's funny. I didn't realize you had a connection to the Hurleys, but I've always considered George Hurley my mentor.
He's a great man. He's a great man.
When I started the first book, I went to George and I said, "Here's my idea for it." And originally it was going to be mostly a picture album with pictures of what was there today and what used to be there that either burned down or blew away in a storm. And he said, "Well, that sounds good." But he said, "Why don't you talk to some of the people? Because the real story of Ocean City is about the people." So I did that. The first 3 people I talked to, wonderful people. And by the time I finished the third, who was J.D. Quillen, I don't know if you know J.D.,
I do, yeah.
but he ought to be in the character part too. I realized, George Hurley is right. It's about the people.
Yeah.
And just really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And I changed the whole focus of the book, and I've always been glad I did.
There's almost a Garrison Keillor, Lake Wobegon quality to the characters that are in
Mm-hmm.
Ocean City. And I remember getting in the car and where you go, Mr. Purdue at Purdue's Truck Store,
Mm-hmm.
and his son Ed was in there, and the daughter-in-law and his wife, and you go over to Fisher's Popcorn, Donald Fisher, Old Man Everett Fisher, that family. You go to Rain's Reef for lunch, and you see all the characters in there. The Rains, Mr. Rain was the milkman.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Just everywhere you went.
that was my dad's favorite place to go to
Oh, it
lunch
was so
in the
much.
off
They
season.
made the Cokes.
If you got to sit in the back room or something,
Yeah.
then you knew you
Made
really
it.
made it if you got
Yeah,
invited to sit in
yeah.
the back room.
If you sat in the back
Yeah.
room and they didn't come in and say, "Yeah, you need to go out in the front,"
Yeah.
you were somebody
Yeah.
to be able to sit there in the back room.
So I never got to sit in the back room. I wasn't famous for anything in those days, but my dad did, and he that was
Yeah.
like. They said they had the best milkshakes you could ever
They
get.
had the
there.
milkshakes, and they made the Cokes by scratch.
All right, yeah,
so they
fountain Cokes.
would mix the club soda with the syrup.
Yeah.
So it was a real Coke.
Yeah, they were right off. Excuse me, they were right off the boardwalk
Yeah.
on Dorchester Street,
Yeah.
and but that was
But
the
everywhere
place.
you went, you go over to Bunny's Dock. All those bunning people, they were all characters. Just
Yeah.
everywhere you went, the Trimpers down there at the inlet characters. I remember Old Man Thrasher, Mr. Thrasher, the original Thrashers.
I had the privilege of interviewing his son for Vanishing Ocean City. Now, his son today is probably 87, 88 years old,
Yeah,
but he remembered how they started it and all this, and it was just fascinating stuff.
yeah,
And people come down to Ocean, they take all this for granted. They don't realize that a lot of these people, like the original Thrashers, they had 90 days to make a year's living
that's true.
because the season then was Memorial Day to
Yeah.
Labor Day, and if a storm came along and you lost a week, yeah, it was going to be a bleak Christmas because
Yeah.
that was the money for the extra things those last few weeks.
Yeah. One thing that was always interesting, the number of Coast Guardsmen who would get assigned to Ocean City, and they would stay.
Yeah, they'd marry local girls.
They married a
and
local
stay.
girl,
A lot
and
of
they stayed in the community.
Absolutely. That's several of them have been interviewed along the way, and the Coast Guard was such a major part of Ocean City, particularly in the earlier days. During World War II, when all the men of the 20s, 30s, that age, had been drafted into the service or had enlisted, they didn't have anybody for the fire department except the older guys.
Right.
And the Coast Guard became the fire department during World War II. And it's a matter of historical record. They had no major fires that burned anything
Yeah.
beyond the building of origin during the World War II years.
Yeah.
Because the Coast Guard was there year round, and they young, strong guys, and the
Yeah.
old guys say, "Well, I'll pump the engine, and you run in with a hose," and
Yeah.
and they did it. And it's just a great town. Greg, we both love Ocean
Yeah.
City, and it's just been very good to me.
Some great fires down there. I remember the night of the Redoux fire, or Redoux, whatever they say.
I've never known how to pronounce that either.
Yeah,
so.
I hear it always.
Yeah.
But that was a huge fire. I remember the Hamilton Hotel was a huge fire because there was controversy with that because there had been, I guess, it was set fire to cover up a crime, so that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Roosevelt Hotel, which my family had owned originally, where Tony's Pizza is now. Just some great,
Yeah, well, that
good
burned
fires
twice
down
actually.
there.
That was where the Rideau fire started. Was in the
Okay.
Roosevelt, and then about 3 years later, the arson bug
Right.
fires of the early 70s was set in there, and that burned again. So it's Ocean City. Fires and storms had defined Ocean City as far as the structures there.
And that volunteer fire company was so strong for so many years.
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
They had one paid guy, and that was Steve Cropper, who
They,
fixed the equipment. But other than that, it was all volunteer.
Absolutely one of the best fire departments in the state,
Yeah.
and still is. I mean, they have an excellent fire company, well equipped, well manned, and they fought some big fires. And one of the things that people aren't aware of, there's never been a major fire in this summer when the hotels were fully staffed that cost a
point.
lot of lives.
Right.
I think the most have ever died in a single fire down there has been 3 people. So these guys, they get out quick and they knock it down.
Right.
Your Majestic Hotel, they saved that about 4 years ago.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You know, that was...
And I'm told you go in there, it still smells like smoke.
well, yeah, but and that was in the daytime. I mean,
Right.
they were there and knocked that thing down right away.
Yeah.
And you know, these old hotels, I mean, once fire gets in there, you're gonna have a real nice day of fighting fire for hours.
When they tore the Washington Hotel down, I cried. When they tore the Commander Hotel down, I cried. When they tore the breakers down at 3rd Street, I cried. Those were just, the porch at the breakers was one of the great porches ever. And I'll go and I'll sit on the porch at the Majestic or at Phillips at the Beach Plaza and just remember what it was like in the 1940s when people would sit on those porches. That was the thing.
The rocking chairs and everybody dress up to walk the boardwalk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not like that anymore. It truly is a vanishing Ocean City when you...
It really is. That would be a good name for a book.
Yeah, hey, I think you're right. I think I'll use that.
So your new book is Ghost in the Surf. Is there a theme?
It's very much a companion book to Vanishing Ocean City. Ghost in the Surf starts in 1945 and goes up to this year.
Okay.
With subchapters in there. White Marlin Open, the Ocean City Beach Patrol, one on surfing. You mentioned the Commander Hotel. There's a real nice subsection on the original Commander Hotel. You know, at one time that and the Ship's Cafe were the two fancy places to go.
Right.
You know, for dinner. And there's a nice section on that.
Pete Boynes, another character.
Well, you know, I didn't interview Pete.
Yeah.
There's a book out on him right now that Dale Cathell just wrote. And but the Ship Cafe was actually was run by Bill Otis's family. The Otis family ran that for years.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. Bill Otis, the local realtor developer.
And there was an airport there.
There was. Well, it was an airstrip. It wasn't an airport.
Right.
But you
still.
could actually land.
Yeah.
And they had a guy who was down in that area, had a seaplane, would give people rides.
Yeah.
That was in the 50s, 40s and 50s.
That's incredible.
But, towns changed. But
and then my father was one of the developers of Harbor Island, so converted all that area.
Well, that's
there.
where it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it was. That was where the Ship Cafe was.
Yeah.
And now that's where the White Marlin Open weigh-ins are held.
Yeah.
So
it gets a huge crowd.
A lot of history down there.
Yeah,
a lot of history.
So where can people get this book?
Okay, they can. There's a number of places in Ocean City. And I couldn't name them all. If they go to my website's vanishingoceancity.com. It'll have a list of all the places you can get the book. You can get it from my website, but if you get it locally, you don't have to pay the postage and all that. So,
Gotcha.
We sell a lot of books on the website, but we sold them every state. I think there are 5 states we haven't sold them in now. So it tells you how many people go to Ocean City, either grew up there or vacation there and moved to somewhere else. Even had one in Hawaii. All the West Coast places we've sold books. I think North Dakota, New Mexico, Arkansas, and there's one other one I don't have in Alaska. Don't everybody in Alaska that's spend a lot of time in Ocean City.
But the first book was so successful, I don't think you saw this coming. My good friend Bryce Stump, who's written some books, I think he's very envious of you with your success.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, Bryce is one of the most talented photographers
he really is.
I've ever seen.
He really is.
And he wrote a real nice review when he was with the Daily Times on Vanishing Ocean City. So I appreciate Bryce and the nice review he gave me. You can get them here in Fruitland. You can go by my office at Mann and Gray Insurance.
Okay, right there on Riverside Drive, or Camden Avenue.
Camden and Main Street, on the corner there, red building.
Right.
We have them there, so stop by, and I think I've even signed some of them. So,
Bunk Man, thanks for all you do to keep our history alive so that we know where we've been and where we're going. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for letting me come chat with you today.
Thank you. He's Bunk Man, and I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it and Let's make a difference.